Dom, first up, just one on Rory Sloane. How's he travelling? It's always kind of been spoken about post-bye. He'd potentially make his return. How's he training?
That's still the expectation at this stage. He's out there training at the moment, actually. So I was just talking to him before, but he's excited, looking forward to getting back playing. But he's obviously got a few boxes to tick before he becomes fully available. But that's our expectation. Yeah.
So the chance to play West Coast on Saturday.
Yep.
The two main ones, Rory Laird, Tom Lynch. How they progressing at the moment?
Yeah, they're both on track as well. Both out there training. Probably with Rory, we're just letting that hand settle completely before we expose him to too much ball work or tackling work. But he's really confident at this stage, and Tom's the same. He's trained on through the early stages of this week, and he's looking good.
It's been a long time since you've both fronted the media together. Is there a special reason why you've done that today on a Saturday afternoon?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Obviously, the track record at the moment isn't looking good between 4 straight losses. How do you hope to turn that around?
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's a good question. I mean, right now we sit in a space whereby we haven't been for a while. You know, we had a very good year last year, obviously through the grand final, and the year before we won a lot of games of footy. So, that's the beauty of this game, is that you're challenged, and we're being challenged at the moment. There's no doubt about that, and I'm up for it. I reckon that's an exciting challenge for us to take on board. It's not all going our way. We've had some setbacks with some noise around other bits and pieces within our program. We've had some setbacks in terms of injuries, but I've got unwavering belief in our playing group, in our staff, and the people in our footy club, because I know the quality that they possess, and therefore they're up for the challenge, and we're up for the opportunity that presents in the last half of the year. And it's, to put it in perspective, it's interesting. We have a conversation with our players this morning, and we're 6 and 7, and we're outside the 8, and we've got some games to win to make into the finals. But a guy like Bryce Gibbs is sitting here going 6 and 7. I would have died for that. The last 5 years coming out of Carlton. So he's actually looking at going, how good is this? We've got a chance to play finals. So different strokes, different folks.
You mentioned the other bits and pieces in your program, specifically the pre-season training camp and maybe the fitness regime. Is that what you're referring to? And do you think changes need to be made? Well,
we've made some of those changes, and we've had those conversations. So that's part of the opportunity you get in the mid-season break, is to really sit down and go, right, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what do we want to change, or what needs to change around our program and around things which are going to impact on our players' performance. So that's ongoing, and some of those decisions have been made.
How much responsibility do you take for that, given you sort of initiated the recruitment of the group that run the pre-season training camp, and that you are responsible for the fitness program? And how much does the buck stop with you?
Look, we make decisions as a leadership group of the footy department. So Don and I obviously lead the footy department, but we consult with the other key people in our footy program. So we've got a footy executive that make all those decisions. So we all take responsibility for that.
So is there anything you could be doing better? Do you concede that you have played a part in this?
Well, look, we're always learning. I don't think we ever stop learning, and we're always reviewing. So there's always things we can do better from day to day and week to week. So always reviewing what we can do, and always looking forward. So
specifically, what are those things? What are the changes that you're going to make going forward?
Look, I'm not going to go into the detail of the specific program, but all I can say is that we're always reviewing our program and always looking to do it better. We sat in there this morning with the playing group and our staff, and looked at at the past and what we've done and how we can get better. So this game always throws up different challenges, and as I said, we're learning all the time. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but our fans and our members can be guaranteed that we're always looking to get better, and we'll continue to get better.
Where's the relationship with Collective Minds at now, guys? Is that still something that you're keen on working with going forward?
No, in the last 24 hours, we've mutually agreed to part ways, and that was a mutual decision. We set out in this relationship 2 years ago, and we had some really good results last year, and I guess what you guys would have seen it publicly. We stood in a present stance. With the 22 players and Don in front of 3 million people Australia-wide. So clearly we had some good impact with the program last year, but for this year it just hasn't gone the way we wanted it to, and that's from both parties. So we made a decision in the last 24 hours just to mutually end that partnership. And but what I will say is that we've got to demystify some of the stuff that was involved in that program. It's stuff like breathing techniques and refocusing and visualisation. And some of the stuff that's been thrown out in the media landscape about what happened on the camp or what happened in that program is it's farcical, really. It's stuff that gets run in in different programs throughout Australia with school children. So it's some of the stuff for us. We really do sit back and just laugh when we hear some of the stuff.
Why don't you give us some details of what happened on that camp then?
I'm not going to go into the detail because I don't think that's fair on the people.
But we don't know what you're laughing at unless
What
you go
about the
into
members
detail.
of the football club? Aren't they owed something?
Look, it's absolutely that they don't need to go into all the detail because I don't think that's fair on individuals that were on that camp, and so we don't have to go into all the specifics. But what I will say is that there is no lingering issues out of the camp, so that is categorical. There's no lingering issues with our playing group and our staff with the camp, and that's all our fans need to know is that we've got a playing group that is happy. We've worked through some stuff that. Issues that we had in the program and the camp, we've all moved on from that.
So why part ways with Collective Mind if there's no issues with what went on in the camp? Because wasn't there contract for 3 years and that was starting last year?
We had a contract for 2 years, but we've gotten to a point, as I said before, we had a good relationship with them last year, had some really positive results. Clearly, where we're at the moment is that it's pretty clear that they've probably had enough of us because they're not getting a lot of positive exposure. And we're also at a point where we've had some good stuff out of it, but when you come to a mid-season review and you reflect on going, what's going well, what's going not, we're not comfortable where that program is at the moment. So we make a decision and go, you know what, we're going to change tack and go a different path. No different to what we do with our training program. We go, is this part of it working? In our game plan, is that part of it working? We make decisions all the time on what's best for our playing group and our program.
Do you regret signing 2 years ago? Do you regret signing up with Collective Mind?
No.
When looking back?
No. Absolutely not.
So, Brett, what due diligence was done before the club signed Collective Mind? Like, did you see if they had, backgrounds in psychology or what their sort of background was?
So let's be really clear. These guys are not psychologists. They never profess to be psychologists. They're mental skills coaches. Okay, so Don teaches and educates the players on mental skills as well. He talks to them about their mindset, visualisation, reset tools. That's got nothing to do with psychologists, and those guys have never professed to be psychologists. So,
but what due diligence was done before the Crows signed up with
absolutely.
Mind.
Yep.
What happened? Or what was done there?
Again, I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but. We don't bring in people into our footy club that we don't have confidence in. And I think, again, we're getting away from the point that last year we had a really positive result. We made a grand final, and some of that was off the back of the work that we did with Collective Mind. Right? So I want you to remember that. As I said, the reset tools, the breathing, the visualisation, we had some really positive impact. This year, some of the work we did, some people like it. You go and ask Roy Sloan or Taylor Walker, they'll stand up and they'll go, love the work. Other people didn't. So we make decisions as a collective, so... That's what we do. It's what's best for the group. And that right now, we made that decision to move on
Was
from
the
there.
camp a pass or a fail in your mind this year? A pass or a fail?
It wasn't. We haven't come away with a good result from the camp.
I'd say fail.
Did the players
to be honest.
feel why was it a fail? Can we get some clarity?
I think if I just jump in there from Brett's viewpoint, and we agree, we did some really positive work in that space and in the mental performance space. So it's not in the psychology space, it's in the mental performance space, and the players are really engaged as we saw through last year. This year we moved that into the next phase of it, and it's fair to say that some of those sessions didn't hit the mark and didn't resonate with the players, and therefore overall the feeling coming out from the playing group and the coaching and the people that are involved in those sessions felt like that we weren't moving the program forward, and therefore we make the decision based on it's not in the best interest of our program, that's being our players and our coaches, to continue to do the work, and that's the real basic reason why we made the decision.
And what was the specific fail from the camp? Was it specifically around the language that was used that offended some of the Indigenous players, or were there other factors? Like, what are some of the specifics that you reached the conclusion that it was a fail?
I think at the end of it, we went there with probably three things in mind we wanted to get out of the camp, which was a bit around our resilience as a group. And so there were some challenging components within the camp to deal with and expose them to degrees of resilience and how they could respond to that. We talked a bit about authenticity, so a lot of the work done on the camp, and I know Brett didn't want to talk about the specifics, but a lot of the work done on the camp was very relationship based in terms of sharing with players, being vulnerable with players and with each other and coaches, which obviously brought some feelings and some emotions with it, which is a challenging space to operate in. And the last part we talked about was our connection. was to help build that connection between players and between coaches. And they were the three aims, if you like, going into the camp. Now, upon reflection and coming out of the camp, I think we felt we ticked a few boxes. But I think the longer the time went on, some of the feedback we were getting from players was there was a few misses on the camp and there were a few things that we could have done better. And that's part of the learning. Now, we operate in an environment whereby we'd love to say we get everything right all the time, but we don't. I've said previously on record as going, I won't be an apologist for us trying to get better. We went to a space to try and get better. It hasn't worked. Into the comfort of ourselves and of our coaches and our players, and so we make a decision and we move on. And that's a mutual decision made with the collective mind group and with ourselves. We take away some positives, but clearly we got to a point where it wasn't functioning for our group and it wasn't functioning for our program, and so we make the decision we did.
Did a lot of Aboriginal players be offended by what's happened?
Yep.
There'd be people who wouldn't understand why that's happened. Why have the Crows offended its Indigenous players?
Okay, well, I don't believe we've offended our Indigenous players. I think we need some clarity around exactly the space that they're operating in. I'll get Brett to fill in the details on that, but I'll be really clear with you. There was no offence. There was some uncertainty and some lack of clarity in some of the components around the camp, and I'm sure Brett will now fill in exactly how we dealt with those.
I'd like to speak to that. So on the camp we had a welcome to country, and so we had an Indigenous elder there that welcomed us to those lands, and were respectful of the Indigenous culture. So Indigenous players were happy with that. There was an Indigenous artefact that was used. Was a talking stick that was used on the camp, and that had a connection to one of our players and his cultural background. And so when we got back from the camp, that was just raised, and we saw clarity. And he went back to his cultural background, and just to see that had been passed on in the right way to the person that had been passed on. And so there was just clarity around that. And within 72 hours of coming back from the camp, that was dealt with. And that was the end of story. There's been no lingering issues again from Indigenous guys around that. So that was more just a clarification about where did that Indigenous artefact come from. That was cleared up by the elders, and there's been no issue since.
How does something like that happen in the first place, given you guys take a lot of pride in dealing with Indigenous players and respecting the history that comes with it? How does something like that happen?
When you do a welcome to country, you're covering off that component. When you've got an Indigenous elder there, and they've got an Indigenous artefact, you're not to know that one of our players has got a connection with that culture, because there's so many different Indigenous cultural backgrounds across Australia. So was it a miss? Yeah, absolutely, but it was clarified 72 hours after the camp. So again, we all learn. It comes
to communication, to be honest.
Yeah.
There was information there which we could have provided to those players, which we've subsequently provided, which we'd provided at the time, would have removed that uncertainty.
Is that something you regret? The way it was handled?
The Indigenous... obviously, there's been no intent from Brett, myself, or anyone running our program to in any way offend any of our players, Indigenous or otherwise. And, that was certainly when they brought that to our attention, we were able to actually have the conversation with them and ease their concerns. But ideally, no, we don't set out to offend anyone in our program, and Indigenous or otherwise.
Did the players feel a little bit betrayed that so much private stuff was brought up and delved into at the camp? Did they feel like...
No, I wouldn't have thought they felt betrayed. I would have thought they would have felt like... and again, the support that was provided on the camp was significant as well. We had, the idea was you're not... And again, there was no intent to force people to share things they didn't feel comfortable sharing. That wasn't the environment. The environment was very much, let's share some information. That was really all that happened. But I can expect from my experience, the support level from each player towards each other, which again, around trying to build that connection, trying to build that authenticity to allow us to actually get to know someone else, it's done regularly in a whole range of spaces. So it was something which was, again, not forced.
But is it fair to say that any concerns? Sorry, go on. You go first.
Is it fair to say that the players basically had enough of this and said, "Can we do something else?"
In what?
Why you've ended this relationship? Why you ended this program? That came from the players, basically.
Oh, no, I think the players are a part of our program. They're a big part of our program. But again, from a coaching viewpoint and from a management viewpoint, we're managing that issue. And so, they have input into that, and we obviously, it's wise to listen to your players. They're the guys out there doing it, so they have a say, certainly.
What was the verdict of not the verdict, but I suppose the guts of the doctor's report that came out of the camp? I think Rob Chapman, on radio, said there was some sort of elements that were a bit concerning from the doctor's report. that emanated from the camp?
Look, there was a doctor's report there, but once again, there's no ongoing lingering issues, from the camp. So all of that has been resolved, and there's, I'm not going to talk specific about a confidential document, but again, I can say that there's no ongoing lingering issues from the camp.
Is it true that Eddie Betts, all the players had their phones taken away? Eddie expressed some anxiety about that, given his wife was 8 months pregnant at the time. But still had his phone taken away. Is that true?
Let's be clear. The intent of the program was that you could have access to a phone and you could call home if as needs be, and certainly there was people who were contactable to do that. The idea was also that while you're there, and again, this is about presence and about being able to share time with people, was that if you remove the technology, which is the ability to be connected to a whole range of people, it's hard for people to be 100% present. So the idea of the camp was to actually go, well, let's put that to one side and let's just be here with each other and let's help build those bonds and relationships so that we're not distracted by the outside world. Each of the players was given an opportunity to make contact with their loved ones. Were they sitting there on their phone ready for it to ring in need be? No, but there was people they certainly could contact in the event that something came up on the home front. We were very mindful of it.
So Eddie was able to contact?
Yeah.
Every day.
Did Taylor Walker present any concerns on behalf of the playing group?
In what space?
Just come forward with any concerns that players had raised? Collective
not specifically, no.
Female staff at the club, were they concerned about a pre-season presentation by Collective Minds?
Not that I'm aware of.
To my knowledge, no.
Was there any? Did that impact the leadership group? Because you went down, I think, from 6 down to 4. That didn't.
No.
Anything that happened at the camp didn't sort of impact cutting people out of the leadership group?
No.
Do you think that's had any impact on why Rory Sloane and Tom Lynch still haven't signed?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Certainly talking to both those gentlemen, no.
Has it split the playing group though? Don't you say there are players like Sloane and Tex who got a lot out of it and others who didn't? So has it caused a divide in the dressing room?
I think it's one of the ones which, if you look at the whole, all the reasons around terminate there, that's not a major reason, but would be a concern from a program viewpoint, that we want to make sure that we've got programs we're running inside our club have got complete buy-in from everyone. Players, coaches, high performance staff, management, etc. And there was enough concerns in this space for us to take the action we take.
Enough of a divide.
Well, enough concerns across the whole program.
Remember, we're dealing with 45 different individuals, so we're trying to run a group program that's best for the collective, and so you're making decisions on all the time what's best for the collective.
One on the high performance, Brett. A lot of hamstring issues this year. I mean, from the high performance,
that's an underestimate.
From the high performance point of view, pass or fail this year.
It's a pass and fail, mate. Look, we're clearly dealing with injuries all the time. The industry deals with injuries, so it'd be unfair to say it's a pass or a fail. What I will say again is we're always reviewing our program, and as Don said before, in our time together, we've been with this group for 2.5 years, both players and staff. We are very comfortable with the staff and the playing group that we've got together.
Do you take any responsibility for that? It is a huge number of injuries. Do you take any responsibility for that? Are there any changes that you need to make?
Can I just jump in there? Early on, we identified we had a problem with our hamstrings. We went away and the guys did a mountain of work to work out what that was, and they've addressed that issue. The last 5 or 6, exception of Eddie, and again, the history would be that if you had a hamstring, there's a chance of re-injury within the first period of time. But if we talk about Luke Brown with an ankle, we talk about Tom Lynch with a side strain, we talk about who else we got? Rory Laird with a broken hand. A lot of the injuries we've had subsequent to that have actually had nothing to do with the program. They've been collision contact sport injuries, which is what we're going to get. Now, I could sit here and say, yep, we've got some issues with the program, and I think we had some early issues which we've identified and we've tried to change. And I'm going to continue to back the people in. I'm going to continue to back our staff in to get the right environment, the right program to get our players available to play. Has it impacted our performance? I don't think there's any question that injuries have had a role in our performance today. But I look forward. So everyone's looking for a reason or a scapegoat or something else. The reality is we've got good people. Have we made mistakes on the way? Yes, we have. Have we had conversations here to say we'd do some things differently? Yes, we would. But right now, we sit at 6 and 7. We've got the last half of the season to go. We're more than capable of playing a lot better than we're currently playing. And we need to just go, what is it we're going to focus on in our program to give ourselves the best chance to keep winning games of footy?
You need to apologise to fans at all? You need to apologise to fans at all for the cock-up of Collective Minds where you're at today?
Well, I don't sort of see it as in the terms that you've just mentioned. I see it as a path we went down which hasn't got us the result that we ideally want, and we move on. But again, I'm not going to apologise for us trying to get better. We sat here as a group at the end of the year and decided we had an opportunity to do something in a space which is a bit new and a bit fresh and maybe a bit misunderstood, and we thought that was a great opportunity. That opportunity hasn't paved its way out. Well, we move on.
You talk about laughable reports, so let's clear the air. Were any players stripped?
No. No.
Were any players blindfolded?
Well, there was blindfolding for a bus trip.
What happened on that bus trip?
Well, I'm not going to go into the detail of what happened.
You don't just blindfold players on a bus trip, do you?
So part of it, again, and part of the, as I said before, part of the focus for that was around resilience and how we actually handle some adversity, handle some anxiety, handle some, and that was all part of that, almost to create that atmosphere environment of the unknown. That was one component of it.
Was the Richmond theme song played on that bus trip?
Yes.
Repeatedly?
Not repeatedly.
So once?
Once.
And what was that done?
That's all part of the build the anxiety, build the uncertainty. And we can argue the merits otherwise of doing it, but that was what it was about.
It's also about building the whole presence. You know, like the guys that were on that bus to talk about how funny it was, because there was a guy that was singing the Richmond song. So, you know, it's everything taken out of context can sound a bit weird, but when you're there, it's pretty normal.
On Kangatech. Kangatech was introduced this year, to my understanding.
Yep.
Is it still being used? Do you put that down to why you had such a big issue with hamstrings?
So the first part of the question, yes, Kangatech is still being used. Do we put it down to our hamstrings? No, we don't. Categorically, Kangatech did not cause our hamstring issues. We introduced something new into our program. When you introduce something new, you accommodate with other parts of your program. Injuries are multifactorial, so we review again about things we introduce, things that we take out, and so categorically Kangatech did not cause our injuries, but we are always looking to review our program and see the impact of new things.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time. We've had plenty of questions, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Catch you during the week. The guys got some other meetings.